Former Apple CEO John Sculley announced two Android smartphones yesterday, a $199 phone called the SF1, SF is for San Francisco, and a $129 phone called the SJ1.5, SJ is for San Jose, San Francisco's big brother. San Jose is actually a bigger city than San Francisco. A lot of people don't know that. Anyway, they're made by a company Sculley co-founded called Obi. Harry McCracken, the one and only Harry McCracken, is here from Fast Company. He is their technology editor and joins us now from, I think, the back of the bouncy house there at Fast Company. That's such a cool background.
That's my fortress of solitude.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So how do we know, how much do we know about the phones themselves? Can you tell us about the phones?
Sure, we know quite a bit. First of all, they're Android, so the software is pretty familiar because it's comparable to what other folks are using. John Sculley, who co-founded Obi, went out and hired Robert Brunner, who during Sculley's era as CEO of Apple was in charge of design in the pre-Johnny Ive days. And so they put an emphasis on making the phones look really nice for the price. The $200 one looks closer to being something you might think would compete with an iPhone or a Galaxy S6. And the $129 one is made of plastic, but it's nicely done for a $129 plastic smartphone.
Harry, I love this article. It was just so well written and such great reporting. I noticed that you use the name Obi very infrequently, and they're often referring to it as John Sculley's smartphones. Is it going to be hard for this company kind of to be entering in terms of not having the name recognition, needing to be more identified by its Apple-related founders than the company itself?
Well, their strategy is pretty interesting because they're not planning to sell these phones in the U.S. at all. John Sculley was one of the co-founders of Metro PCS, and he says that in the U.S. you got to go through the wireless carriers, and it's just kind of ugly for a smaller company. It's even ugly for most of the larger smartphone companies these days. So they're starting out in countries like East Africa and Turkey and Pakistan, where probably people have never heard of John Sculley. So I don't think he's a selling point there, and they will either succeed or fail based on how well done their phones are for the price point. He also told me a bit about the fact that before he worked at Apple, he was the president of Pepsi, and he sees the marketing of Android smartphones as being kind of comparable to marketing colas, because a lot of it is about having lots of signage in the local stores where people buy phones and getting branding out there, and they chose the name Obi partially because it looked good on signs in stores.
The problem with the name Obi, as I found out when I was researching this story this morning, is that it tends to autocorrect to obituary, which probably isn't good. Now, why not just sell sugar water? Why is he trying to change the world with this phone? I mean, nobody's making money on smartphones. What is it that Sculley and the Obi team think they have as a secret that will enable them to succeed in this market?
Well, their strategy is to make a nicer phone. For all the things about Obi that are not at all like Apple, they say they are a design-driven company. They do look like nice phones for the price. It's still pretty daunting, though, because almost every company you talk to who makes Android phones, such as the folks at OnePlus, will tell you that they're design-driven. And there are some awfully nice Android phones out there that are beautifully designed, and the companies that make them still aren't doing that well. So essentially, Obi needs to be able to get by on a rather small profit margin. They need to be really good at the supply chain stuff and the components they use. They're also using some nice components, like their $200 phone uses a Sony camera module, which is about as nice as it gets. So they look like nice phones. I'm certainly rooting for them, but in the end, it still is an awfully daunting challenge they've set up for themselves.
And I like that they have the flash on both sides. They are selfie optimized, as phones need to be these days. Harry, why are they not selling Obi phones in the U.S.?
Pretty much because the market here is so challenging. Most of us still buy our phones from a wireless carrier, so you have to have a really good relationship with AT&T and Verizon and those folks. He did note that is gradually changing, that the industry is moving away from giving you a $700 phone for $200 and making you sign a 2-year contract. Over time, it might be that people are a little bit more likely to buy a phone not from their carrier, but from another retailer or online. So it is conceivable that eventually the US market and Obi's business model might align a little bit more than they do right now, but he doesn't say they have any plans to sell phones in the US.
One giveaway that they have no plans to sell this in the US is that it has dual SIMs, which is a feature that is very popular in a lot of countries, but not in the US. Now, what's bundled software-wise on these phones, and what does that bundling tell you about their strategy?
Well, the company name is Obi World Phone, so they're really emphasizing the fact that in a lot of countries, people want to be able to call people in other countries really easily and affordable. And that's also reflected in some of the apps they have. They have an app for free texting. They have an app to let you find cheap wireless plans. They have something that's a little bit like Periscope or Meerkat, but designed to work well on really sluggish networks, which you have in a lot of countries, because they're going into countries where they're just finally moving off of 2G networks to 3G in some cases.